Hey, guess what? Spoilers for Into and Across the Spider-Verse, as well as personal biases warning, because I'm going to be talking a lot about my opinions on these movies and how they deeply resonate with me. Alright, it's finally here. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is now a movie that exists, and I have seen it 3 times because it's really good. This movie is incredible, as I sort of just said, and there's no shortage of people online, and probably in person, telling you that very thing. There's so much good in this movie that even ideas used for a single minute here are better than every idea in some entire superhero movies, even ones that are not completely awful. This movie is spectacular on many fronts. Beautiful animation, a surprising plot, exciting action, really great voice acting, well-realized characters. I can go on and on for days about what this movie does right, but there's one thing above all else that makes me appreciate this movie. This movie is great above all other brilliant elements. Because of Hobie Brown. No, wait, because of the film's main theme of belonging, but also because of Hobie, though. He's a legend and one of the greatest things about this movie, but actually I was talking more about the film's main theme, that theme of belonging. This theme is great not only because of the way it builds off of what the first movie already set up, but also because of the way it applies to the characters of the film and the way it connects with the audience watching, which is to say me, the way the theme connected to me. Before we can move forward, we have to look back. Way, way back. But not in the 1980s. This is in the late 2010s, because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse released in December 2018, and it was really good. I saw it in 2019 because at the time I wasn't in the online movie sphere. Actually, I wasn't in the movie sphere at all. I pretty much only watched MCU movies, and though I'd heard of Into the Spider-Verse, I didn't think much of it. When I watched it, I mostly watched it because the one YouTuber I did watch at the time mentioned it and said it was fun, so that was my base expectation level going into the film. Coming out of the film, however, I had a new favorite movie. It was insane just how good this movie was, and on so many levels. Nowadays, it seems obvious that the movie is amazing, but I was not expecting anything more than a good bit of fun, so things like Uncle Aaron's death actually being legitimately emotionally engaging were a nice surprise. Add to that the chills I felt when the leap of faith scene came on, and I felt like I was watching one of the greatest films ever made. And you know what? I still think that this is my favorite movie, even if I can acknowledge that there are probably better movies out there. And yeah, I could tell mostly where the plot was going, outside of that Uncle Aaron being the Prowler twist, but that doesn't mean it wasn't emotionally satisfying to see it play out. The movie is, as many have faulted it for, fairly simple, but man oh man is it effective. Despite, or I'd argue because of its simple plot, the movie's main themes shine through like an electric shock on a cold winter's night. And the main themes of the movie are both pure Spider-Man and also pure relatable. The idea that anyone can wear the mask is such a perfect idea for the very first Spider-Man movie that's about someone other than Peter Parker, and the idea that you can't know when you're ready, you just have to jump is something that I can't believe wasn't in Spider-Man movies of the past. Actually, though, the leap of faith seems like such an iconic idea and feels so quintessentially Spider-Man that I looked online to make sure it wasn't a comic concept first, and yeah, it's unique to this movie. The themes of this film are so quintessentially Spider-Man, and they're so quintessentially relatable. This is obviously more subjective, and I'll touch on this a bit more in a little bit, but that theme of having to push through fear to achieve your goals was and continues to be emotionally resonant with me, and I'd imagine many others. It's fairly simple, and yet it rings true, and if the point was for it to connect to the audience watching, which I'm not sure why it wouldn't be, the film succeeds with flying colors. Above all else, above the compelling character work, the hilarious humor, the amazing animation, and the triumphant tale, the film's thematic message is what cements it as both my favorite Spider-Man movie and my favorite movie. Fast forward a few, and we have Spider-Verse 2. By a few, I mean a few years, and by Spider-Verse 2, I mean Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the continuation of Miles' story from the first movie. This movie is a capital M masterpiece, and it deserves nothing less than a permanent spot in the Museum of Modern Art. Okay, maybe that's a bit of hyperbole, but still, my point remains. The movie's really good. It's so insane and risky, and I'm really surprised that it was allowed to do half of what it does. When going into this movie, I was really excited to catch up with the main trio of the first and see them all interact together again. If you've seen the movie, you'll know that that doesn't happen, though that's probably the direction I would have gone in. The thing is, Lord and Miller and the whole team behind these movies are really intelligent, and I'm just some random person on the internet talking about movies I like. If that was at all confusing, I'm saying that my ideas for the movie would have been wrong and hindered this interesting story from being told. Anyway, the main theme of this movie, and also what the theme of this video is supposed to be so long as I don't get sidetracked again, is belonging. And this movie's biggest strength in my mind, like the first, is bringing that theme to the forefront. Again, this theme feels so quintessentially Spider-Man that I'm surprised it took this long for it to be the main theme of a movie. Unless you count Spider-Man Homecoming, which sort of deals with that, but in a bit of a different way, because the Avengers, or at least Iron Man, the Avengers stand-in for the movie, actually accept Spider-Man as a superhero, and Peter's arc is accepting that he needs to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, where Miles' arc in Across the Spider-Verse is about questioning the status quo and finding the people who accept him. Actually, both Miles and Gwen's arcs feel quintessentially Spider-Man, because Gwen has to find her band. This isn't a big discovery on my part, because, like in the original, it's stated by the main character in the closing monologue, which actually I just now noticed that the final monologues of both movies sort of mirror each other. That's cool. Gwen says that she found her band, and it's shown to be the gang from both movies put together. But this is after Gwen left her home universe with the Spider Society to avoid having to go back to her dad arresting her, and when she does have to go back, she ends up hashing things out with her dad, which makes him see her point of view, which causes him to quit his job as police captain, which probably means he isn't going to die, so that's cool. Miles, as well, wants to tell his parents that he's Spider-Man, though it should be noted that he isn't being held at gunpoint by his dad, so this is a little bit different, but he's scared of what they'll think. He doesn't feel like they understand him because of what he's hiding from them, but he's also afraid of the rejection he could face if he tells them. This aspect is also really interesting, especially because this is the Spider-Verse, which means that Miles and Gwen can openly share their common fear of parents finding out their secret identity, though in Gwen's case her dad already knows. Because this is the Spider-Verse, Miles doesn't have to be alone in his burden. He and Gwen and Peter can share their experiences with each other, because like Gwen said in the first movie, the Spider People are quite possibly the only ones who understand what Miles is going through. Speaking of and getting back to Miles, he's getting ready to go out into the world without the support of his parents. In that first movie, he still had to figure out who he was, but the other spiders were there and rooting for him, and even when they had left, his dad was still there cheering him on. He had people in his corner, and now preparing for college and beyond, he won't, at least not nearby. He has to be sure of who he is, and he has to protect himself, no matter what faces him. Miles has to be confident in who he is, in his identity, if you will, and he has to find where he belongs. It isn't easy, as I'm sure it wouldn't be for anyone, but sometimes the right choices are the hardest ones to make. Miles went through a lot in this movie, emotionally somehow more than in the first, and he had to be sure of himself and where he belongs to fight the Spider Society and win, to send himself home, and to let the people he knows who genuinely care about him know the full extent of who he is. As stated in the intro to this video, that whole aspect of the film is the one I related to and resonated with the most, the leap of faith of Across the Spider-Verse, if you will. Both of these movies are some of my favorites of all time, and that's because of a lot of things, but primarily because of how deeply they both resonate with me. I don't usually watch movies in the theaters more than once, and at least to my memory I've never seen one 3 times, especially in 1 month, but I did with this movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up seeing it again. And why would I see this movie 3 times in a month? Because the visuals and characters and, oh yeah, the themes. This movie is thematically just as good as its predecessor, again with the theme of belonging. But not only does that theme work really well, it resonates with me on a level that most movies don't. I don't know if you can tell by my age, but I'm similar in age to Miles in this movie, and was also similar to him age-wise in the first, so I found a lot of parallels between the lessons he learns and the lessons I, well, should learn. Speaking of which, I've actually done things and achieved goals I maybe otherwise would not have because of the whole leap of faith theme from the first film. Look, I'm not saying I'm just like Miles, because I'm not. I've never made an apology video, but that doesn't mean that I don't relate to a lot of his personal problems. Yeah, I've never been Spider-Man or guest-hosted Jeopardy, but I have been linked to things and disappointed my parents. Maybe my friends aren't from a different universe, but I can relate to having long-distance friends. In fact, the people I shared my excitement for this movie with were mostly people who don't live anywhere near me. This movie feels personal to me, and it's been difficult to write about because it's so impactful, and it's hard to describe this movie in a way that does it justice, you know? And yeah, I am one of those people who will defend almost every aspect of this movie because it means so much to me, and I've already added it to my Letterboxd top 4, which doesn't really mean anything because I can remove it at a minute's notice, but it's still my way of saying that this is one of my 4 favorite movies of all time. This movie and its predecessor resonate deeply with me, and I've seen a lot of other people feel the exact same way, which feels sort of weird just with how personal these two movies feel to me, but it legitimately resonates with a lot of different people for pretty much the same reasons, and I'm guessing that's intentional. Spider-Man as a character was written to be relatable to teenagers. He was the first mainstream superhero, and actually the publisher thought that the character wouldn't sell because of that, but Spider-Man was an instant hit, and it isn't hard to see why. He reflected readers' own lives, not because he's a larger-than-life superhero, but because he's a shy, angsty nerd who always has a lot to figure out. Miles, at least and especially in the Spider-Verse movies, is the same, in the important ways. He's the first big-screen Spider-Man to genuinely have problems most teenagers would have. He's also the only big-screen Spider-Man with both parents still living, which I think is relatable to a fair amount of people. And by not being white, he can visually represent groups that may not feel as represented by Peter, and that also kind of ties into the idea that anyone can wear the mask, which was intentional and also pretty cool. But even beyond that, he goes through arcs that represent what a lot of people have to go through, living up to expectations, having to face your fears, being secure in who you are, and finding where you belong. These are things that just about everyone has to deal with, which makes them universally relatable, but the way the movie deals with these themes makes them even more relatable. Movies with this broad appeal can easily feel just that, like they're trying to do a lot and trying to appeal to a lot of different people. But both Spider-Verse movies actually succeed in feeling universally relatable to a personal degree because they focus on their characters. It's pretty simple, but Miles is the type of person a lot of people can, at least somewhat, see themselves in. He has his own ambitions and a distinct personality. He doesn't feel like a cardboard cutout, but he feels like an average kid in a lot of ways, aside from the whole Spider-Man thing, again. He goes through average kid struggles, faces obstacles that the audience will understand and resonate with, but he does so in a way specific to his character. Spider-Man stories are, at their core, coming-of-age stories. They're about a young hero figuring out his morals and his place in the world, both as a hero and as a person, and the Spider-Verse movies do this perfectly. Maybe these movies are flawed and I'm just blinded by my adoration for what they achieve, that's almost certainly the case, but these movies resonate with me on a level beyond any of the other Spider-Man movies. Maybe that's because I'm similar in age to Miles, or because the Spider-Man actually goes through high school, MCU Spider-Man, or maybe it's because I relate to a lot of Miles' problems and arcs throughout the two films, and maybe the lessons Miles has learned are things that have legitimately changed my outlook on life. Actually, it's a combination of all three, and once you add in the interesting meta-commentary on the Spider-Man mantle, and the beautiful animation, and the magnificent score, and so much more, you get an unforgettable, borderline unbelievable experience of a film.